Until now, you have been learning the concepts. You understand what AI automation is, what AI agents are, and why tools like N10 matter the most. But now, a new question appears. How do I actually build something real? What are the core building blocks? How do professionals design powerful workflows? The session is where execution truly begins. Most people fail at automation for one simple reason. They don't understand nodes. They randomly connect the blocks, copy workflows without knowing why they work. And they also download YouTube demo tutorials and use those templates, break systems and don't know how to fix them. As a result, automation collapse, agents behave unexpectedly, and client-ready systems are never a thing. It is far away. To build an automation empire, you must first master the types of nodes. In this new AI Automation and AI Agent Masterclass series, my role is to give you clarity before the complexity. Today, I'll show you the 4 nodes categories, what role each one plays, how they can work together as a system, and once you understand this, you stop guessing and start designing the workflow. So every automation starts with a trigger. No trigger means no workflow. A trigger node is like a scheduled alarm clock. It stays idle, it waits patiently, it activates everything else at the right exact moment. You can program it to run every day at 8 pm, activate when data is received, or respond instantly to use input. So that is what a trigger means. A trigger is basically like how the gun has a trigger, how the alarm clock works, how your phone rings. So that is what the trigger is. Trigger nodes, there are 4 different kind of nodes we are going to be understanding in this particular session today, where we'll be understanding the trigger node, the action nodes, the utility nodes, and the code nodes. So the trigger node, we have already understood about it. The action nodes are that actually does the actions for you. There are multiple utility nodes. For example, you can use utility nodes like how you can create shorts using YouTube nodes only, how you can actually send message using Telegram. Code node is something you can actually have a structured output. You can actually have a certain filtration in the code, and you can pass it on the same data, the filter data to further workflow. If you can segregate the data using the code node. But don't worry if you are a non-coder person, and I'm also a non-coder person, how you can design the code node without knowing. Writing a single line of code is what this master is here for, and I'm gonna help you in doing that. And if this particular 4 nodes has given you clarity till now, make sure you pause this video for a 2 seconds and comment your learning in the comment section below. Like the video and share it, because this masterclass only continues if you show your engagement, as I said in my previous few videos as well. So in the day 4, we need to understand what is a trigger. Before we design a workflow, we need to understand what is a trigger. A trigger is basically which actually triggers your further workflow and how you have designed the workflow. For example, you have kept a trigger as a scheduler. So every day at a certain point, for example, you have scheduled the workflow for 5. So every day at 5 p.m. this workflow will work. So that is what is it. 5 p.m. is the trigger for this particular workflow. So every time, maybe another kind of trigger is gonna be every time you capture a payment, your further workflow are gonna be working. So that is a trigger. Trigger is basically a mechanism which actually activates your further workflow. Now, what are the common types of triggers? The common types of triggers are manual triggers, which is used for testing workflows, as I mentioned in my previous video, where we use test only when you click on the workflow, the workflow will be triggered. This is what manual workflow trigger is about. Scheduled workflow, which we just understood, if you have a scheduler set and only that certain point of time the workflow will work, that is again a simple example of triggers. Webhook trigger are the most commonly used trigger. Webhook, if you don't understand what is webhook is basically, you can consider it as your phone number, which actually connects your data with different applications. If you want to pass on your data from a different application to N10 and send the data to further workflow, then you will be using a webhook, which is basically a URL, a unique URL, which actually triggers the further workflow. So whenever anything happens on that XYZ platform, the data will be sent on your N10 dashboard. So this is how webhook is used to do that. Then chat input trigger, basically whenever a chat is received, the workflow is triggered. So these are the 4 common types of triggers these days, most commonly used. The action nodes are the workers of the automation. So the action nodes are the doers, which actually does the actions for you. We have understood the triggers, but after the trigger comes the next action step. So once the trigger is happening, what is the next action you have designed in your workflow is what we call it as a action node. So for example, you have schedule the workflow for 5 p.m. every day in the evening. But once the it hits the 5 p.m. clock, what is the next step you have decided? So you want to send the data on Google Sheet, you want to capture a data from somewhere, or you want to send an email to your client or to your team members. So what is the next action you want to do? And that is what we define as an action node. Then the utility nodes are the organizer, which actually organizes your, so the basic use of the utility nodes is commonly used is the data filtering or structured output data, which is you use it for filtering out the data for specific use cases that only, for example, you have this 5 p.m. schedule and you want to send a notification to your team member. This is the action, but only if it is a weekday. So how do you define that? Only if it is a weekday, you will be using a utility node to filter out that only if it is a weekday, then only the further workflow which shall be moving ahead. Comes the code nodes, which is unlocking custom logic. Under the code node, you can actually use certain kind of logic, only certain output coming. So everything you capture from a webhook, everything you coming in your workflow is not relevant for you, right? So how do you actually segregate that and how do you filter it out? That is where the code node comes in, and it helps you to actually customize the data you have captured. And the advanced AI nodes are the intelligence layer, is where the dynamic decision making is happening. As we have already understood that AI agents are capable of are the autonomous, and they are goal oriented, they are able to do tasks and learn on their own. So how this is happening is because advanced AI nodes, and it is basically an intelligence layer which helps it to define that. And in the day, here comes the most exciting part, where we are actually gonna build a workflow, not the actual use case workflow, but we are gonna have the hands-on that how we can actually start deploying the projects in n8n dashboard. We have already understood about the n8n interface. If you have not watched this video, make sure you watch the previous video, because I have already mentioned each video of this series is gonna be interconnected to each other. So make sure you have watched the previous videos so that you understand what is happening over there, else this video will make no sense, and so on the further coming series videos will make no sense if you have not watched my previous videos. So make sure you watch that and then come back. You don't jump in between two random videos of the series, because it is going to make no sense to you. So coming back to the point, we are going to be creating a new workflow over here. So as we have understood that how do you create a workflow, there are two options of creating a workflow. Either you click on this plus icon and you click on create workflow, or you also can click on the create workflow option over here and you land onto this particular interface where you can actually create your workflow. So how do you create a workflow? So here we have understood that we have to connect multiple nodes to create a workflow. And if you click on this plus icon, you see something happens on the right side, which is basically nodes. These are nodes. This is trigger manually node, on app event node, on schedule node, on webhook call node, on form submission when executed by another workflow node. So these are all nodes. So you can see these are only showing the trigger node. So because the workflow is starting, as we have already understood, trigger is required to start a workflow. That is why it is only showing the trigger nodes. So what are the trigger nodes option we can use is here. So if you want to click, you can, whichever trigger node you want to use, you can click on that. So I'll be using a chat message trigger. So this is where a chat message. So as soon as you click on the chat trigger, something like this will appear. Now a lot of you lose your horses because you now find it that it is very complex, that if I want to go back to my dashboard, the canvas, how do you do that? So this gap which you are seeing between this dark gray, you can click over here and you can go back. There's another way of going back is you can click on this back to canvas and you can go back over here and you will be landing back over to this interface. So this is how. And if you have clicked on, if you want to open this particular node, any node you want to open, you can simply double click on it and you can open it. And here if you want to check the settings, I am not gonna get into this right now because it is not relevant right now. So you can check the settings over here. You can have multiple fields over here. That's not relevant right now because we are just building the foundation. Yes, we'll be building it in future series once we are into the intermediate level. Now the next node is if you want to connect, what is the next action you want to do once you receive the chat message. So I'll be using the data table over here. Using the data table of n8n inbuilt over here. You can use Google Sheet as well. But yes, if you are connecting Google Sheet for the first time, it is gonna be way too complex for you. So we'll be doing that in the future videos. Don't do that right now. So use it, keep it very simple right now so that the logics are clear and we can build advanced system in future series as well. So pace up with me, and here we'll be using the data table option of the N8N inbuilt. So here once you click on this, you see multiple actions are provided where it shows as delete rows, get rows, if row exists, if row does not exist, insert row, update rows, upsert rows. So what are basis on your functionality, basis on your requirements, you can choose it. So inside right now, if you want, right now I'll be using update rows, and it will now you come onto something like this. So it will ask us to choose the row and date. I have already selected the operation as update row. Now it will ask you to choose the data table. So just how you choose your the Google sheet, which Google, it is basically actually asking you in which data table you want to insert the rows. So you can, if you are doing it for the first time, obviously you have to create a new table. You click on this choose button, and something like this will appear, and click on create new table, and a different tab will open. So here you will have to give a name to your table. So basically we are giving it an identity so that we can identify which table we created. So I'm just giving it as the name of YT demo, and I'm just gonna be clicking on create now. And once this is created, this something like this will land up. And now if you want to add rows, you can add rows. You can click on add rows, so you can see a single add row is added. And if you want to add a column, I want to add a column of name, and I want to keep it as string. I add a column, and it has added a name column as well. So I want to add another column which is phone, and I want to change it to number. And as I add a column, you can see the phone column is added. Now coming back to the sheet, if you see over here, it's not reflecting right now, but if I search for YT demo, it's gonna show. Yeah, so here you can see earlier it was not showing, and now it is showing. You can select the data table now, and you can, what we have done is, till now we have selected this particular data table right now to update the whatever input is provided by the chat message. Now this is not required right now to understand, and here you can add conditions. This is again not required as of now. We'll keep it very simple and logical right now. So let's just disconnect this, and what I'll do is I'll show you the chat node. So you can see this chat node, and this is, I double clicked on it and I landed onto it. So I want to check whether my chat node is working perfectly or not. So to do that, you just click on test chat, and here you see on the bottom you have a chat node open. So here is where you can input your, if I type hi, you will see, so you get a green tick over here. This means this chat node is working correctly. But you can see we did not get any reply back. It's because we have not implanted any intelligence which can reply back. So that is where right now it is just a workflow. It is not an AI agent. So you now know. If you have understood this, comment AI agent in the comment section below and help me understand that you have understood the differentiation between an automation and AI agents. So why this is not an AI agent is because an AI is not implanted into this. It is just a workflow. So comment AI agent in the comment section. Make sure you like, comment and subscribe so that you don't miss the future updates. So coming back to this, so now we have understood that our chat node is working perfectly. Now if you want to connect this, just simply drag this and connect it to this node, and that's all. You can actually use it, move it, and as you click on green plus icon, you can add more nodes over here. But let's test this first node over here. So now you have a message over here. So you can see once you click on this, you double click on this, again you come onto something like this, where on the left side you are seeing the input which I have given in my chat. So you can see you are getting a hi message over here along with the session ID. Session ID is basically a unique identification number, and the action was send message. So it is what it is showing. So it gives the output in schema, table, JSON. So this is not required. The only output we are going to be working majorly in this particular masterclass is going to be schema, where we can actually drag and drop things. So how do you drag and drop, and why do we need to drag and drop is here is two things I want you to explain. For example, if you want to have the name as for example the phone number, we can have a so I'm entering a number over here. I entered a number. So if I entered a number, it's gonna be static. It is not gonna change every time the workflow runs. So that is what it is. If you see this is basically gonna be static. And if I want anything to be dynamic, I'll have to drag and drop this. So from here to this. And now you can see this green thing. It's gonna be dynamic. And if you want to see the output over here, you can click on this little icon over here, and you can see this is the result we are getting if we pass it on into the sheet, the data table. So I'll just click on execute step, and at least one condition is required, it shows. So let me see. So now I changed the operation from update to insert, and now you can see if I click on this, you can see the data is passed on to this, because this is manually entered 9910, the phone number. It is not dynamic, and it is gonna be dynamic. So every time a new input is provided, this will keep on changing and it will insert the put basis on that. But this remains the same. This is the major thing you need to understand, that what is dynamic and what is non-dynamic. What is the difference between this and how do we use it? So if you come back over here, you can see the workflow has been executed successfully, and if you click on executions, you can actually see the executions of this, and you can see earlier we got the error and we resolved this by changing the operation as I mentioned, and you can see the both the things are working. So as soon as you get the green tick on both the nodes, this means your workflow is working fine. And if you're getting anything like the red icon or yellowish thing, you need to figure out what some error is happening, and you can actually check that in the executions part. So you can see the previous executions. If I click on this execution, you can see that this was not working, and that is why it had the red cross icon over here and this had the green tick. But in the previous run, the workflow was executed successfully and you can see a green tick. So this is how you can understand the execution has been done perfectly or not. So every time a new thing happens, it's gonna dynamic and non-dynamic things you need to understand. That is the variables we'll be using in further coming sessions. But this was the basic use of the nodes. And if you want to add more nodes from here, you can actually, maybe you want to add LinkedIn, you can search for LinkedIn and you can actually connect what are the operations you want to do, and you can actually connect your LinkedIn, maybe whatever you want to do. So this is where the options are lying under the nodes. Now we understood that how we can actually create these workflows and nodes and understand the nodes and everything, but we need to understand that how do we rename this, because in further coming sessions we are going to be building workflows which are going to be way too complex. We might have to use same kind of nodes again and again, but how do we make it unique is if you double click on this, you click on this and you can actually rename this. You can rename this whatever you want. So you click on this and maybe I want to keep it as test node and click enter and again come back. So you can see it has been renamed. And in the same way you can double click on this and then come on this input node, and you can actually, for the data table it is not provided over here that how you can rename. Okay, there's another option where you can actually click on these three dots and you can actually rename this. So you can actually test data table and here how you can keep it as unique. And if you want to rename your workflow, how do you rename your workflow is you click on this. You can see over here some name might be popping for your dashboard. You can click on this and you can rename this as whatever you want to keep, and that is how you can keep it for your references. So if you want to keep this workflow active, you'll have to toggle this on and your workflow will be activated. So it will give you some pop-up and you click on got it, and now you can see it is activated. If you want to keep this inactive, make sure you keep it inactive. And one very much important tip is that whenever you are building your workflow, you have to keep on clicking on the save button over here. So if I do anything over here, and let me just add a node over here. So now you can see this save button, orange button. So every time you do any changes in your workflow, you keep on clicking on the save button, because it is not something which keeps getting auto saved. You have to keep on doing the manual save. So you keep on clicking on this. So if you have been spending a lot of time, you have built the workflow and suddenly maybe your system crashes or there's power outage at your place, so this saves your time because you have been clicking on the save button. So if you want to delete this, all you have to do is just click on this dustbin icon and your node will be deleted. So that is how. And if you want to come back onto the main dashboard, this is if you click on the overview, you come back onto your main dashboard. If you want to see the personal dashboard, you can see that this is where we created this whole workflow, and this is how we are landing it. So this is how you actually navigate through the N8N dashboard. Practically do a hands-on, and in the next video we are gonna build the first agent for use cases. So here's the truth: AI agents are built through trial and error. Even experts map the wrong field. I did, like just now I showed you that I was facing some error and I mapped the wrong field. That is fine. Miss a parameter, they get rejected by APIs, and that's totally normal. Best practices is keep workflows inactive while building. Use test workflow frequently. Double click nodes to explore their settings and the documentation, and the persistence is the only skill to learn the AI agents. The goal of this masterclass is ambitious. We want to grow from beginner, intermediate, advanced, and a sellable automation empire. But this only happens under one condition. We will take this masterclass from beginner to advanced only if we see huge engagement and viewer support. If you want this journey to continue, like the video, comment your takeaway, and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss the future coming sessions. Your engagement decides how deep we go. With your love and support, we'll build real AI automation empires together.